What's up, CW fans? This is part 2 of the CFT1 build video. So we're going to get right into soldering components and we'll see how far we can get. I think we're going to chat a little bit about the manual and some of the components and start digging right into it. So get your soldering pencils ready and get your rosin core solder flux ready to rock and roll because we're going to jump right into it right now. All right, so as promised, we're going to pull up, and this is kind of how I'm going to do it with the video because I can't think of a better way without getting super complicated. But I'm on the Ham Gadgets website, the CFT1. I've got a link in the description, and if we go over to current docs, I think I've got Rev D, which is that one right there. Go to the assembly manual, and it looks like it's downloading. Let's just open this bad boy up. And here we go. So, as I mentioned, I wanted to go into the manual earlier and make sure that I had all of the components. And that's another thing that I encourage everybody to do is while we wind up getting everything all set up and kind of like organized, you want to go in and make sure that you have all the parts. So I've got all the PCBs, which is cool. And then here is the parts list. And what I noticed is a couple of things, actually. The first thing is I thought these were high wattage resistors, and they are not. They're actually inductors. So that was one thing that I misread when I first started unboxing everything. And the other thing is I misplaced a little baggie of the toroids and the wire. So I've got that, and that shouldn't create any more problems, or at least any problems for us. I might have a separate video on winding the toroids because I might have to do a little bit of a different camera setup. But either way, I think it looks like I've got everything now. So that was another piece of the puzzle. And then you can kind of see one of the things I thought was interesting is, you know, a lot of these capacitors over here, they look exactly the same, but they're not, you know, particularly these folks right here. You really have to like zoom in and see what the numbers are on those things to make sure you get the right one. And then you can kind of see that they're all listed here. That was another thing that I saw. So I've got the 3D printed parts. Everything's cool. This is a 55-page manual, and look, we're already on page 9. So I got the kit that we didn't have to break apart the PCBs, so that's cool. Let's see here. Yep, if your boards already came separated, start here, which I will. And looks like what they want us to do is, because these were together, there's like these little nibs on here that need to be shaved off. So we'll do that next. And then we're going to start right after that by installing the 4 leaded inductors. So we'll give that a shot. So I'm just going to put this bad boy down right here so we can kind of see it. And let's see here. I'm going to get a knife here and let's start cleaning up these boards. This is like probably not super exciting to watch, so if you want to just forward this to when I start doing the inductors, that would be cool. Matter of fact, I might even look for maybe an abrasive pad or something like that, just to make that nice and smooth. Although that seems to turn out pretty nice. Not bad. Got one on this side. Don't worry, I'm not going to cut off my finger. Or maybe you guys aren't worried about that. because this blade is so dull. I should probably just get a new blade on here. But hey, I'm already committed. Almost there. All right, not bad, right? Maybe just a little touch right there. Not bad. So I don't have anything on any of the other sides, right? So let's do the other one. So this is the other one that would have been connected to the one I just showed you. So let's get these guys out of here. Getting better. Everyone's probably like, oh my gosh, this is like brutal watching this. He needs a new blade. So let's do that. Let's just spin this around. Pop that on there. Okay, let's find where those, there we are. Oh wow, that's just so much better. Just going until I don't feel the little nibs anymore. It's kind of a smooth cut. So then you just kind of like rub your finger oils on there. You can kind of see that. Turned out pretty dang good. All right, do this one. Almost there. It's getting pretty smooth. There we go. Not bad. Not bad. All right, so that's two of the boards. And then we have the face plate and the back plate. We have to do both of those also because these were together at some point. Also, I'm assuming that when these get ordered and fabricated, maybe from a cost standpoint, having them done together and having this breakaway component to have both of these together when they're manufactured is probably what Jonathan was going for, I'm guessing. We'll see. But the manual says that this whole process is going to take between 3 and 4 hours. So we'll see if that actually ends up being the case. But you know, when you have to do stuff like this, I mean, this takes minutes, right? So not too bad. All right, so we've got that step completed. Let's see here, that's beautiful. All right. So the RF board is the one with the 3 relays. So that would be this one. And we're going to put this one right here. And we're going to install the 4 leaded inductors. So first take the inductors and bend one of the ends around 180 degrees. So it looks like that. And then insert them into the 2 holes. Bend the leads on the other side at about 30-degree angle so that they stay in place. I'll show you what that means. And flip the boards over and solder them in place. Clip off the excess leads. And remember to save them for later because we're going to use them in another step. And we have a nice diagram of where these go. And if you can see, like L17, L is the designator for inductor. So we've got an L17 and L22 and L15. So 1, 2, 3, and then the bottom here is L12. So that's where they will all go. So what I'm going to do is I'll just put that down there. I have my quad hands. It's actually kind of custom. I want to build it myself because I wasn't super happy with the base on the quad hands original setup that I have. You can look up quad hands on the internet, and see exactly what I'm talking about, but this is kind of a modification. So let's just kind of like pop it in like that. I do have my soldering iron on, plugged in, and rocking and rolling. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide the little keeper pieces of paper off the ends. So I have all 4 of my inductors ready to rock and roll. I can just do one of these at a time like so. And that's kind of like what we're looking to do for these inductors. So that's kind of what we want to go for, if you can kind of see that. So that's 1. This will be number 2, like so, 3, and 4. And what we're going to do is, you can see on the board too, I hope you can see that, there's a little circle around one of the pads that these are going to go through, and it looks like that's going to signify where the body of the inductor goes. So I'm just going to pop it in like so. That's 1. The other inductor goes down here. Whoops. Dropped one of them. So the inductor goes there. That's number 2. I think the third one is over here somewhere. And the 4th one, I think, is over in this section. There it is, L15. So you can see that they're, some of them are a little tight, but this one's a little bit kind of loose. So as he mentioned, what you could do is on the bottom of the board here, I don't think that's going to slip out. I don't think that's going to slip out, but those 2 might. So on the bottom of the board, what you could do is just pop it a little bit, and it's not going to come out, right? So that's what it's going to look like. This one, same thing. I'm going to like raise it just a teeny, like maybe a millimeter, and then do 1 and 2. So that's what that's going to look like. This one could probably go down a little bit further. 1 and 2, looks good. And then this one is a little bit high, right? So scooch that down. 1 and 2. So that's kind of what it's looking like on the bottom of the board. And then I'm going to solder all of these right about now. And we have the mascot right there. I have rosin core solder here. And I have my soldering iron. And we're just going to solder these bad boys on here. There's 1. So I'm touching the soldering pencil to the actual lead. And then touching the solder to the lead and the pencil just to get some flow going. And I leave the pencil in there for maybe a second. Where the 1, 2, 1001, 1002, yeah. There you go. There you go. And you'll notice the inductors are kind of like sliding around. It's not that huge of a deal. All right, so there we go. Looks like maybe I'll just touch that one up a little bit. That one too. And I think they look all pretty good. Put that back in there. So I'll flip this around and I'll make sure that these are looking good, like straight. There we go. All right, I think we did a pretty decent job there. And what we're supposed to do is clip off these leads. So I've got what I would call my lead clipper. I want to make sure that these clips right here for my quad hands don't just kind of like just smash on these surface mount components. So what I like to do is I like to kind of put the quad hands in these corners here, for example. So I'll do that, and then that, and then we'll clip these off. There's one, because we have to save these. And my quad hands are magnetic, so you can, I'm just kind of like laying them up against the magnetic post there. I enjoy kit building, and this is going to be slower than normal, only because with the video and me trying to like maneuver around the camera and making sure that I get everything in the frame here, but it's kind of fun. So that's essentially what that's going to look like. We finished the step for putting the inductors in place. So we've got that, and we've got that. Let's take a look. Yep, inductors are good. Step 3, and look at that, we're already on page, what, 13 out of 55, right? So we have 16 ceramic capacitors, and what we're going to have to do is make sure that we are putting the correct capacitor in the correct spot. I have all my capacitors over here, and we are going to have to put the right capacitors in the right spot. The neat thing is they are all up at the top of the board here, right here like this, so you can kind of see C58, 61, 71, 63, 64. So we can look at the designator on the right and make sure we put the correct capacitor in there. So what I'll do is I'll put this down here, and maybe I'll move that so we can kind of see this. I don't know if you can kind of see there. It might be a little bit of a glare. How's that? Even worse. So let's start by, there's a quantity 1 of a capacitor. The label is 104. So I'm going to have to figure out which one it is. Let's see here, 104, there's one of them. Now the 301. Actually, maybe we should do, look at this, there's 3 301s. Let me make sure that I put the 301 right there. That's a 361. Make sure that these 301s might look like 361s, which we don't want to get those screwed up. See, there's 2 361s. There's a 361. 361. All right. I'm not seeing the rest of the 301s. Maybe these are it. I'm gonna have to turn on my my little scope here. Maybe you can see that. That's a 181, right? These are 151s. And I think it looks like I need 3 301s right here. Well, let's keep looking. Like I said, doing inventory is important. 1 and 2. I'm gonna have to, I wonder if I dropped one. There's 361. I think that's a 361. That's a 361. And that's a 361 as well. It's very possible that I misplaced one of these, so I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm going to get my third 301. But anyways, let's drop these 301s in here. So I've got to put one of them in the, let's make sure we're good here. I have to put one of them in 58. So let's do that. Let's find 58 here. Looks like 58 is right there. So we'll drop that in like so. And the other one is going to be in 65. Looks like 65 is, there's 66, 68, 60, 67, 65 right there. I can even use tweezers if I want to. Drop it right in. And then like we've done with the other, we'll just kind of like bend the leads just slightly on either side, like so, and we can kind of solder them in. All right, so mental note, I'm missing a 301. Okay, that's one. That's two. All right, and we don't have to keep these leads. The leads for the inductors that we are saving are going to be used in another spot. We're going to need the long length of those to do something special, and we'll see that once we get there. All right, so I've got that. I'm also wanting let's go to the very first one here, which is the 104. It looks like that's the 104. Let me double check that in my, yep, that's the 104. And that's going to go into designator C57. C57. So we've got 60, 61, 58. Let's take a look here. C55 is down there. 59, 64, 58, 68, 59. There's 55, there's 57 right there. Let's make sure that that's the right spot. C57. There we go. Dropping it right in. Bring it down to the board just a little bit. Do a little bend on there. It's not completely touching the board, so it pops up maybe half a millimeter or something like that. And let's solder that in and be done with that. And there's one. And there's two. I think that solder looks pretty good. Yep, looks good. All right, so that is, let's see, we've got line 1, line 2. Let's go to line 3. We have 2 that are 181s. Just going to put this back like that. So 181, let's see, I think this was a 181 here. Yes. So these are the pair of 181s. There's 2 of them. Slide that one out. Put it right down there. Slide that one out. And 181 goes into 59 and 69. Thought I saw 59 over here somewhere. 59. There we go. Spread the leads a little bit so that it doesn't fall out. And then 69. Looks like it's right there. Boom, boom. I think I got that one. There we go. All right, so 59 and 69. Got those done. Let's flip it around. These quad hands are very handy. I like them. I've never had them like as a youth. They didn't really exist. And I got pretty handy with holding a board and soldering at the same time. Glad I don't have to do that anymore. Okay, there's one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. A lot of capacitors are very sensitive to heat, so you don't want to like come around here with a 1,000 Fahrenheit soldering iron, because you will damage the capacitors. But all right, so that takes care of that. That's line 3. Let's see, line 4. We've got 2 151s. I think these are them. Take that out. So 151s. Woo! All right. Which ones are these going into? All right, so 151s are C60 and C70. So let's see here, C60. Boom. And then C70. I'm looking. All right there, C70. Boy, oh boy. Let's spread these out a little bit. Try to get them in those little holes there. There's C60 and C70, just making sure it looks right, looks good, perfect. Okay, let's rotate this around, solder these folks. And what you could do is you can throw in all of the capacitors and make sure that they're all in there, and bend the leads, and then you can solder them all at once if you want. I'm just kind of like doing this one at a time just to be methodical about it for the video. Because if you do all of them or a bunch of them, you're going to have a ton of wires on the other side of this, and I think it would be a little bit difficult to video and show like exactly what's going on. So trying to be just a little methodical about it. That's all. And then you can also delay and wait to cut off all of these extra leads here on the capacitor, but just to make sure it's clean, I'm doing them as I'm doing them. Okay, so that's line 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 151. We have 2 361s, and I do have 2 361s. And those go into number 61 and 64. So that will be, there's a 64 right there. And there's a 61 right there. So 61 and 64, that's good. And in the instructions, it does say that how these come from the manufacturer, have these leads bent kind of how they are. And the instructions recommend to bend those back straight because they're a little bit too wide to actually fit in the hole there. So a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my long nose and just squeeze on the bend to straighten it out like so. And then what I'm going to do is like that. So let's straighten this one out a little bit more, like so, and then straighten it out like that. So that's probably, I don't know if you can see that, it's a little bit hard to see maybe on the black there. It should be the right distance. Yeah, it's pretty dang close, pretty cool. So I'm gonna like cinch that down all the way to the board. It's actually because the leads are not completely quite right. It's actually nice and snug in there, so I'm not going to even mess around with the leads in the back. But I'll do the same thing to this one. Just pop it, boom, boom, boom. I don't want to work the wire that much because I don't want the leads to break either, right? So I'll do that. and that. Good enough. Good enough for government work. All right, so that was 61 and 64. 64 is over here. There we go. All right, 61 and 64. Let's solder these guys in there. We'll be good to go. Lost it. I guess it wasn't sitting in there as snug as I thought it was it? All right, so that one's in there. Let's find this dude here and let's bend those leads so it doesn't pop out. Doggone it. All right, so good lesson. Might as well bend those leads. Okay, so that's one. That's two. All right, oops. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Trying to save all of these snip-offs because I don't want to junk up my spot here, my workbench. All right, so that is 361. Now let's go down to this one. 68 picofarads. Looks like 680 or 68J. I have a 20J. Now that's going to be for the bottom one. I have a 121. That's cool. I have a 621. I have a K, I think it's a K1J. I have a K1J. That might be, I'm gonna have to look that up. Because I don't see a K1J here. 68 picofarads. Yeah, let's look this up. So K1J capacitor. K1J CP. Let's see. K1J capacitor value. And it looks like that's actually 560 picofarads. So that's what I've got here on my thing here. All right, so I might have to figure something out with the rest of these capacitors. So K1J, yeah, 560 picofarads. All right, so I might have to figure out what in the world's going on with that. And I also want to make sure that I am also on the correct revision here. I think I'm revision D. Yeah, I'm revision D. So, yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll skip that and note it and go down to the next one. So we have 621, which I found 621 here. Let's straighten out those leads, just like the other ones. There we go. All right, so 621 goes to 63. There we go. So you can see. So it's going to go to 63. 621 goes to 63, and 63 is right there. I don't know if I bent those good enough. Yeah, I guess so. All right, I'm going to bend them in the back so we don't have any issues. I'm just going to just keep it like so. Get it in there a little bit more. There we go. I'm going to keep it like so. Now I've got the leads bent back there. So let's go to the next one, which is 121. Actually, it looks like I have two 121s in here. Oh yeah, that's right. There would be two. This could be 66 and 71. Pull these out of the little paper holder. So 66 is right there. Let's see if we have to do anything with these leads, because they are kind of bent a little weird. No, maybe not. There's 66. There we go. Nice. Let's rebend those. 66 and then 71 is right here. All right, I think we're good on that one too. Let's bend those leads. How about, do we have a 510? Yes, we do. It's going to be going into number 67, but it's got these funky leads we have to straighten out again. And that is going to 67. Not a lot of holes left here, so that's cool. I'm going to pop that in there, get it nice and snug. I'm pushing these things down close to the board. Some of them are like, you know, the base is almost touching, but I think that's okay. And then the last one is 200 or 20J. I do have a 20J, looks like this. Pull it out of that. That's going to go into 68. Looks like right here. Another larger capacitor. I think these are ceramic capacitors, right? Just going to snug that in all the way so it's close to the base. Spread those out. Okay, so I think we've got a lot of these capacitors, 16 capacitors. Let's see here. I think we have a couple missing, or maybe there's something incorrect. I do have this one capacitor that is labeled as Kilo 1 Juliet, K1J, which is, I think it was 560 picofarads. So I'll just kind of put this over here just to wait. We have a couple of electrolytics left over here, but I think those come a little bit later. And yeah, that's all of, I'm just kind of looking around here to make sure that nothing kind of went flying or went weird, but I don't think I did. Yeah, I think everything's been pretty contained with no real anomalies, stuff flying around anywhere. Something underneath that? Nope. All right, cool. Well, we'll reconcile the rest of those capacitors later, and that's okay. I think that would be, actually, yeah, 301. Yeah, so we have one left, the C72 right here. I didn't have enough of the 301s, so that was one of the issues. I might even have a 301 here laying around in the shop. Let's see, the other capacitors. There's a C62, which is the one that was in question here. That actually might be the K1J capacitor. And then that's it. So those two, 72 and 62, are the only two that we need to reconcile. So I'll keep that in mind as we figure out life here. I'll reach out to Jonathan and ask him what his thoughts are. So that's what it looks like, and I think ours looks pretty much like that also. One thing I want to make sure that we do is let's solder in these capacitors that we just dropped in. and then we can move on. And I think we can move on and kind of reconcile those other capacitors a little bit later. It's no big deal. Got that there. That's 2. That's 3. See what I mean with the leads? You know, if you don't cut them, you're going to have to just navigate, right? No big deal. Whoops, there we go. And 2 more leads. There's 1 and 2. You want to make sure that the solder goes all the way to the pad, and make sure there's no solder bridge between the 2 pads. Not exactly sure. Let's double check that last one I did. Looks like I might have bridged the 2 pads. We don't want to do that, obviously, right? That would short it out. I'm using these flush cutters, so you can get these very cheap just about anywhere. All right, did I bridge those? I don't think so, but let's just double check. Just heat that up. Heat that up. All right, looks good. Yep, looks good. All right, cool. So we finished with the ceramic capacitors. Now we can install the crystals. This is going to be maybe pretty fun, super easy. Looks like they're all in the same spot. I do have 4 of them here, so which is cool. Take your 4 matched crystals and solder them into place, just like in the previous step. Important note, it's recommended that you ensure the crystals do not make electrical contact with the PC board. All right, cool. There's a small possibility of shorting the leads to the case of the crystals, which will result in no receive audio. When you solder them, make sure there is some space between the crystals and the board, or use a small piece of paper to insulate the crystals from the board. Interesting. Let's take a look. Okay, so we've got that. And yeah, you can see that the actual case of the crystal might come in contact with one of the pads or one of the solders. So what we'll do is we'll take care, and just from an aesthetic standpoint. So we've got the crystal, it's a 4.9 crystal. I'm just going to drop these in. I like to keep all of them looking like they're the same. They've got the writing in the same direction, and then it doesn't really matter, but it's an aesthetics thing. There we go. So we've got all of those on there. We don't want them to be all the way down like that. It's possible that they might short against the actual canister of the crystal. So let's see, what can I do? I could probably take this LED, maybe slide it under there, and then that's a little bit too odd. How about that? That would probably give me enough clearance, and I'll solder it on. Let me bend all of these leads just so that they don't pop out on me, and let's flip it over. And I think that was the bottom left one. Yep. So let's solder this in there. And let's take a look before we do anything else. All right, so that kept it up enough. Not super beautiful. It looks like it's a little bit up. So what I'm going to do is warm up that solder. Push it down a little bit. All right, cool. Pushed it down just a touch. So it looks good. Okay, let's do that with the other ones. Let's do this next one here. Let's Just going to slide it under there. Maybe let's do something like this. Let's just throw one of these leads under there. Kind of like so, just kind of bridging it across. And I think that'll be fine. Yeah. Then we'll solder this. And then what we'll do is fine tune it. Let's take that lead out of there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Maybe this side can go down a touch. So we'll do that. Ow. Yes, I did burn myself. Okay, so let's see. That looks pretty good, right? It's not touching the PC board, which is good. All right, let's do the other two. Not bad. We're trying different things here. Let's shove that lead underneath there. Being careful and mindful of the surface mount components. I kind of want to get it under the second one there too, so I can do both at the same time. Yes, beauty. I did it. So I've got the lead under both of them. Let's solder both of these. Be efficient. This video is probably already way too long. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. When you're soldering also, when you get solder, get some really high quality stuff. It'll save you pain. There's 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Now, let's go in there and make sure we pull that lead out of there. Hopefully it didn't get super stuck. So vent it up a little bit and I'll just sneak it out. All right, so these all look pretty good. None of them, they're not touching the board, which is cool. Yeah. So now we've got the crystals installed. And then the next thing that we do, and we'll do this real quick here too, is we want to take the clippings that we had from our inductors, right, here, and we need to connect the crystals together. And he makes a good point here. We'll need to do this with a sense of urgency because prolonged heat might damage the crystals. Very good point. What we'll do is add a small blob of solder to one of the crystals, which will be the, let's see, maybe this one right here, I think you're doing. And then we'll arch around like so. Use the lead treatments to bridge the crystals. Looks like that. And then boom, 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 boom. Make sure that they're all connected. There we go. And then there's a little pad right here that we need to drop one of the leads in and connect it to the crystal like so. So let's give that a try. Let's get one of our longer leads here, like so. Let's do exactly what he said, which is, I think we're going to go exactly how he did it, which is like so. So 1001, 1002, 1003. Okay, we're going to leave it. Whoops, didn't even put the solder in there. There we go, come on, get in there. All right, so I don't want to like put any more heat on that. And dissipate it with my finger. It doesn't look like the solder was melting on there, which is not cool. So what I might need to do is do a little bit of an abrasion on each one of these just to get the solder to catch. Let's see here, what can I use? I might need to, let's just get that solder flux off of there. This is a dental pick, or sometimes called a dental explorer. And I'm just kind of scratching the surface here. I'm going to do the same thing with this here. Same thing here. And the last one here. All right, let's try that again. Okay, much better, right? Just dissipate the heat there with my, touch it with my thumb. It's burning kind of, sort of, but I want to not have these crystals be super hot as much as humanly possible, right? So I'm going to take this lead. I'm gonna tin it, they call it, right? So get some solder on there. There we go. And then I'm just gonna go like this. Whoop, done. Okay. So that's the first start of that. Then what we'll do is, whoops. Wind this around like so. So we'll have some solder on that one, solder on that one, and then finally solder on that one. So that's how that's going to look. The only challenge is it's a little sprung up there, so I'm going to have to like tack it down like so. I might even be able to just go like that as I solder it. Or, you know what? Looks like that last one is touching. So what I'll do is I'll do that last one first. Okay, I think that'll work. Now let's wait a moment and make sure. Okay, I'm just doing a very light tug just to make sure that that solder is actually on the can of the crystal. Let's do this one here. Get that in there. All right, looking good. Doesn't have to be pretty. I like it being pretty. Doesn't have to be pretty. That's good enough. Let's check it. And then I'm going to bend this down a little. Make sure it gets closer to the can on the crystal. And then we're going to go like this. Get that going there. Okay, cool. Hopefully that was fast enough as to not damage the crystal. All right, cool. Let's do a pull test. Looks like it's not floating. So these are all connected. That's what we wanted. A little bit of extra solder flux on there. Not worried about it. Who cares? And then the last thing is we need to take a piece of one of these leads. We're going to drop it into here. I'll solder it from the top. There's a nice pad up here, so why not? So that's going to solder from the top, and then what we're going to do is bend it over to, I don't think it really matters, but if we look at what he did here, he pops it over to this one right here. So what I also want to do is, let's scratch up the can a little bit, just from a solder adhesion standpoint. All right, so we've got that. Let's bend this over, like so. What I'm going to do is pre-cut it. All right, so that little piece went flying somewhere. Let's kind of make sure it's popped down onto the can like so. And let's solder it in. This might be one of the harder parts of this kit, although I don't know, I haven't done this kit fully yet. All right. So that's in there. Nice. All right, did that take? Yes, it did. All right, so that's what it's supposed to look like. These are the crystals for the radio. And it looks like we are dead nuts on what that should look like, and should be pretty happy. We can discard any lead trimmings that we currently have or in the future. So we don't really need anything anymore. We don't need to like hold on to any of these like trimmed off leads anymore. But when you're doing this kit, that is the one part that you need to like concern yourself with. All right, so step 5. All right, we're already on page 18 out of 55. And yeah, we'll keep going. So we have this PNP transistor, which is this right here. And we're going to install that into the spot called Q13. So this is a TO92. Make sure the flat side lines up with the flat indicated on the silk screen. So this white stuff here on this PCB is called the silk screen. And if you see, these leads are all in line, but you know, this center lead kind of kicks back a little bit. So what I'm going to do is bring the lead back like so, and kind of try to conform it to what that looks like to fit into the hole like so. And it's oriented correctly also. So there you go. That's what that looks like. We'll solder it in. I like to be quick about soldering in transistors or anything with silicon, because they're sensitive, right? There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. How's that look? Not bad. 1, 2, and 3. Get all of those out of there. Pretty good. Nice. All right, so that's step 5. Install the MPS 751. Okay, we're going to throw in, we have 4 trim pots. 3 of them are 10K and 1 of them are 5K. It has a code of 502 on it. Install this trim pot in RV2. So I'm going to look at my trim pots. It's a 103. The codes are on the side. That is a 103. This is hard to tell. Bingo, 502. So we're going to install that right down here somewhere. Yeah. So it looks like there's 2 spots for a trimmer pot, they call them, trim pots. Potentiometer, that's a very fine tune. So there's one here. That's not what we want. We want this one here, which is the 502. There's an orientation here. The leads only go in one way. So what we'll do is do that. Boom. Set it flush to the PCB. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like take two of the leads and bend them so it doesn't move. We can flip it. You can see the... Okay, I'm sorry about the abrupt stopping of the video, but I ran out of space, so it stopped where it stopped. I noticed it right away, so we'll pick it up on part 3 of the CFT1 build. A couple other things. You will notice that I had some issues with the capacitors. I'll address that in the next video. Basically, one of those things was my fault. So keep on carrying on, and we'll see you in the next one. CW on, my friends.